Michael Shellenberger, I'm sorry to fangirl a little bit here, but you've been on my list of people I wanted to interview for over 10 years.
Thank you.
And this is actually a really exciting conference because there's a few people here that are on that list. Yourself, Bjorn Lomborg, and Dick Lindsay on that list.
Absolutely.
So forgive me if I this may not be my best interview, but it's one of my most exciting ones. Michael, for those that don't know and aren't fangirling right now, they say, Michael Schellen who? Michael Shellenberger. What is it that you do?
So I'm a journalist, I'm an author, I'm also an advocate of clean energy, and I'm also an advocate of free speech, something I never thought I would be doing, but we've seen a lot of censorship and increasing demands for censorship by online platforms. We've seen a lot of it in Australia. We saw accurate information about the return of coral to the Great Barrier Reef be censored. Accurate information be censored. We've seen accurate information on the voice referendum censored. There's been some successes. I believe Facebook fired one of its fact checkers, but I've become a passionate defender of free speech, of environmental progress, of prosperity, of nuclear energy as a way to lift us out of poverty, and really natural gas. I mean, I think these are the two most important fuels for our future.
I want to get to energy in just a minute, but there's a really interesting thing here where, a little bit like yourself, very, very different, I'm not making a comparison, but there was a similar path there, where I began speaking up on water supply for irrigation for food growing in Australia.
Right.
And I began to very quickly discover that I had to start defending free speech because I wasn't actually able to speak the truth on that topic.
Incredible.
Was it a similar path for you where you never went out to talk about free speech, you just wanted to tell the truth on these topics?
That's right. I mean, my book Apocalypse Never came out in 2020, and I was censored for sharing accurate facts about climate change, where they're not even controversial facts, and the justification for censoring me was that it could be misleading.
Sure.
And I remain censored to this day. There's no appeals process. There's no way to, I remain angry about it. And it's, it's unjust because these are big corporate monopolies. You know, there's really no alternative to Facebook and Twitter, which is now X. So yeah, I came to in 2020, and then in late 2022, I was one of the journalists that went into Twitter and had access to the internal Twitter files. And what we discovered was shocking in the sense of very significant demands for censorship by the US government of Twitter staff. We also saw disinformation campaigns where you had US government and other entities promoting disinformation and demanding that people that were proposing true information, accurate information, be censored. So it's so vast. It's many government agencies around the world, particularly the Five Eyes nations, US, Britain, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, NGOs, fact-checking organizations paid by Facebook and Twitter, at least pre-Elon Musk, and together they constitute a censorship industrial complex that has very unethical, I think illegal ties to intelligence and security organizations. We saw it rife during COVID, where we saw people being censored that were sharing accurate information about vaccine side effects. But yeah, Australia, the United States, Canada, Britain, very similar patterns of censorship on everything from COVID to climate change to issues around gender.
Well, that work had a huge impact. I know here in Australia, or not here, but in Australia, it had a massive impact at a number of senators, one of whom is actually here, Senator Alex Antic, were able to springboard off your work and then do their own investigative work and freedom of information requests, etc., and uncovered the fact that over 4,000 social media posts had been censored at the request of the Australian government. And that wouldn't have actually been possible were it not for the work that you did to begin that process.
So glad to hear that.
No, but thank you. And it's come at a huge cost to you, I know that as well. Moving to energy now, and I guess actually starting off with Apocalypse Never. For a lot of people, and we're talking about a better story here at ARC, the story that a lot of young people are being told right now is the world is about to end on your watch, and there's really nothing you can do about it because everyone older than you hates you and is just destroying the planet. What is Apocalypse Never about?
Well, I think the first thing to acknowledge is that the world is getting warmer. I agree that greenhouse gas emissions are contributing to that warming, but it's not the end of the world.
Sure.
It's worth pointing out that more people die of cold than heat. We've actually done a really good job coping with this additional warming. The most important thing to know is that deaths from natural disasters have declined 90% even during the period when the population of the world quadrupled.
Yeah.
So somewhere between 300 to 500 people total die in the United States from natural disasters.
Yeah.
Nobody need die at all. But when you compare it to other disasters, we have a drug addiction crisis in the United States. 100,000 people, more than 100,000 people die every year from that. So when you're comparing it to problems, climate change is real, it's not the end of the world. And not only that, but carbon emissions have actually been going down over the last decade because of the transition from coal to natural gas fundamentally.
Sure.
And it's one of the technologies that scared me as a boy, nuclear power, has actually turns out to be the safest way to make reliable electricity, and it produces the least pollution of any technology. So we're at a moment now where there's a genuine grassroots pro-nuclear movement. I'm seeing it in Australia.
It has begun.
It's very inspiring because it's changing hearts and minds. And I think that Australia will go nuclear. I think it needs to go nuclear for national security reasons as well as environmental and economic reasons. So I think we're in the beginning of what will be a major shift of consciousness by people that care and love the natural environment and also want to lift everybody out of poverty.
Wonderful. Now we're at ARC. The theme here is a better story. We have already kind of touched on it, but this better story, why was there a better story needed in the first place? Why have people flown from all around the world to meet together with other people that want to tell a better story? Better than what?
Well, I think there's been two big stories. I mean, from the left, we've had a story that say humans are bad, the future is apocalyptic, the world is a terrible place. And I think from the right, we have seen an emphasis on markets, on individualism, and to some extent, I think some denial of environmental realities.
Sure.
And I think that there's a younger generation that sees that those things don't really provide a purpose or meaning, including people on the right. And so what I've been gratified to see is people on the right starting to realize that actually lifting people out of poverty and protecting the natural environment are one and the same process. You move away from wood and dung and even coal now as solid fuels towards natural gas and uranium. As you lift out of poverty, there's much more abundance, and so energy abundance is required. You produce more food on less land, for example. That leaves more of the natural environment for endangered species. So for me, I think the new story really starts with this recognition that energy abundance allows for environmental progress, which is one and the same with human progress, human liberation, and really women's issues, women's rights issues, but also lifting, allowing kids to go to school rather than having to gather wood or and provide food, work on the farm with their families in poor countries. That process is really unlocked and enabled by cheap and abundant energy. So I think that that's the new story. It's a story of human, energetic, and environmental progress.
Now, from the point of view of the ARC launch, I can understand why you've been invited here. You are one of the speakers. Correct me if I'm wrong, you are one of the speakers?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I was going to say, I suddenly I doubted myself for a moment. That all makes perfect sense to me. But let's flip it the other way. What do you hope to get out of ARC?
Well, I just love meeting people that come from different parts of the world with different parts of the political spectrum.
Sure.
I think the things that we used to define as liberal or conservative are changing now.
Definitely.
And so for me, it's been wonderful, but I also have lost some friends because of my views and because of telling the truth as I see it. I've written 2 books now, Apocalypse Never, San Francisco. Lost some friends along the way. And, I'll tell you, the best part of losing your friends is making new ones.
Sure.
And I've been able to do that here and seen some friends I've made over the last couple of years. It's been very gratifying.
Wonderful. Well, Michael Shellenberger, this has been a real thrill for me. I don't want to drag it out any longer. Thank you so much for giving us this much of your time and for talking to the Aussie Wire.
Appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.